sites, but we want to thank you all for joining us for the 2021 Virtual Southern Home and Garden Show virtual presentations. Today we have Mr. Birdsong talking about basic beekeeping. We also want to thank our sponsors, the Pulaski Lions Club, Bankston Motorhomes, Big Creek Winery, Blue Line Pressure Washing Services, Bull on the Run, Farm Bureau, Five Stones Landscaping, Giles County Co-op, Haney Realty and Property Management, Pulaski Electric Company, Plant Maintenance, Tri-Green Equipment, the Giles Chamber, and UTTSU Extension Office. We also ask that you check out our vendors, who are All-American Gutter Protection, Aspen Hill Growers, Butcher Drafting Service, Columbia Kubota, Flowers Creamery, Georgia's Quilts, Guardian Garage Floors, Kathy G Creations, Lane Roofing Company, and Leaf Guard. You can also find us on all of these social media sites, so please check us out and see what all we have going on. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Birdsong for him to present on honeybees.
All right, thank you, Darby. We'll see, can't we figure this out and get started. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. And like I said, this is a basic beekeeping thing. We got, maybe 50, 60 slides to look at. And this is a drop in the bucket to what you need to know about beekeeping. Okay, to start with, and I'll try to hit it again at the end of it. In every county surrounding Giles County, there is a beekeeping club, a beekeeping association, or whatever. And I think all of them probably meet monthly. The extension office would be able to tell you how to get in touch with them, and what time they meet, and when and where. And folks like this is where that you would really be able to learn a lot about beekeeping, all the ins and outs. I said today we're just going to hit the high spots. So, okay, we'll get started. If you see, I think what you're seeing on your screen is the history of bees, the value of bees, and the biology of bees. And we will look at all of that as we go through it and figure out which one of these buttons to punch to make it go. And there we go. So, okay, first of all, we'll look a little bit at the history of bees and the importance of the honeybee. So the honeybee has been around for thousands of years, and there's drawings. Whether it's a picture of a drawing there, it shows. I think this is about 4,000 years ago. It was on a wall in Egypt, maybe. It shows there's actually smoking the bees. So bees have been around a long time, forever. Of course, back in that time, about the only sweetener that you had was honey, and of course, most of the affluent people was the ones that had the honey, that had the honey bees to have the honey for the sweetener. Before the 1950s, when the bees were robbed, the colony with the hive was pretty much destroyed when they harvested the honey. And then early beekeeping, they started doing things like a straw skip. And there's a picture of one in here somewhere. And it had it was made out of straw. It had a top that came off of it and had laid some sticks or something in there for the bees to build a cone on. And of course, it dropped down in the skip. And then when you harvested it, you maybe didn't destroy all of the bees, but you destroyed all the honeycomb, everything that you harvested from. That was all destroyed. So if there's anything left, they had to start all over again. So, like I missed something here. Okay. So somewhere in the 1850s, around about 1850, a fellow by the name of Lorenzo Langstroth came up with what we know today as B space, and the B space is about 5/16 of an inch. If it's greater than that, they will build some cone in it. If it gets down to about a quarter of an inch, they'll just fill it up with porpoise and it'll be all glued up to where you can't do nothing with it. And then after that, the thing started moving. Came up with the uh, removable frame, because this is a picture of the removable frame that we use now. This is the Langstroth type. And of course, you can see on each end, it has the little uh, tab that sticks out there where it hangs in the hive, and you can just take each honey super will have like 10 frames in it, or 9 frames, and you can just take out the individual and leave everything else alone. So this is a picture of some of the Billa smokers, because all this came into play after they figured out the B space and the removable frame, and all these things started coming into play. And so you see we had the Billis, come up with the imprinted foundation that we use today. I think I got a picture of that in here. Came up with the honey extractor, where you can, you sling, you drop that removable frame in the honey extractor and spin it around, and it slings the honey out. And then you can take that out, put it back in the hive, they'll clean it up and put more honey in it. And so that saves them all the work of building the frames and whatever. And then of course we had the honey tank. We had some pictures of that. We'll talk about where you strain the honey into the honey tank, and of course all of us hobby beekeepers, we strain it into a tank. We strain it one time and let it settle, skim the foam off the top of it, and we bottle it, and that's just about as pure honey as you can get. This is just some pictures of some old smokers, and if you're really interested in beekeeping, this is something that would be fun to do, is to get on Google and Google all this stuff and look at it. I mean, there's some pretty outlandish things with that thing. This, of course, the one that's kind of like this is more what we use today, but it's interesting just to go back and look at all that stuff. This is the imprinted foundation that I was talking about. I've looked this up several times and I keep forgetting, but I think on each side, on both sides, there's maybe like 3,500 of these. So this makes like 3,500 sails. It's on a frame, and getting old and forget when I can't remember if it's that many on each side or both sides, but that kind of gives you an idea of how many frames, how many sails is in the hive bodies where they raise the brood. This is a picture of the honey extractor, and you can see here there's 4 frames. This is a particular one that you could put probably 8 shallow frames in at one time, and you have to spin it, and it slings it out, and then you actually, on these, you have to take it out, turn it over, and put it back in there and spin out the other side. And it's not a real time-consuming thing, and for us, hobbyists, that's kind of the cheapest and the best way to go. This is the plastic honey tank, and you can see at the bottom is the gate valve. We just set this under the extractor, and I don't think it shows. They don't show the gate valve, but in the extractor at the bottom there's a gate valve in it, and it drains into here. And let's look at this is one version of a strainer, because the top part of it is coarser, and then the bottom is real fine, and it just catches the coarser stuff like if you should get bee in there and you have some bee parts or even a hive beetle or whatever, pieces of comb, this catches it, and then the second one really filters it fine. So there's not anything, when we bottle the honey, there's not anything in it but honey. Honeybees was not native to the U.S. They came over from Europe in maybe in the 1600s. And of course, the only way to get here was by ship. So can you imagine being on a ship with hives of honeybees for all this time? How many, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it took to sail to get here. So that was a kind of an ordeal in itself. The Indians, when the bees were brought into the United States or brought to America, the Indians referred to them as the white man's flies, because they never saw a honeybee again, because they know what honey was, honeybees or whatever. We'll look here in a minute at some different types of hives that are used. This is just kind of a picture that the one on the left there. This is a piece of just wood. The name won't come, but they hollered it out. They just hollered out and make an opening for the bees to go in and out, and then put a lid on top of it. We'll look at some of that. This is sweet gum is what I'm trying to say. It's just some sweet gum. And that's where the word bee gum, I think, got started was from that. But the hives we'll look at is the Langstroth, of course, is the one that we use. Most everybody uses today. Some of these others are used, but Langstroth is by far the most widely used. And at Wary Hive, we'll look at that. It's kind of a square-like hive. The top bar hive, we're looking at in the long hive. This long hive is kind of come into play in the last few years, and it is one that you can use just the Langstroth frames in, and you can extract it and not destroy everything. The top bar hive, when you use it, you destroy the comb when you use that. This is just a picture of a hive of bees, a swarm of bees that settle on a limb, and they never did go nowhere to find a cavity to start their colony. So they started it right there on the limb. And we'll look at another one of them later on. This is the bee skip that we talked about earlier. And you can see these are places where they go in and out. And this is a modern one. This wasn't one of them old-timey ones, but and of course the lid come off, and across in there they would just put some bars or sticks or something, and the bees would build on that and let the comb drop down in there, and then you could take that out, but you had to squeeze the honey out. Was the only way of getting it out, and you destroyed the comb when you did that. This is some of the bee gums, and when you look at these are pretty fancy, aren't they? One sitting on a wash tub, and of course I don't know. This is just some boards that's nailed together, and the top put on anything to hold bees where they could make honey, and they would later be able to get the honey out. This is the Langstroth hive. And you start at the bottom, and of course the bottom is the hive stand, and then the bottom board is this part here. A lot of people don't use the hive stand, just use the bottom board, and it sits on concrete blocks or some whatever they have to mount it on, because you don't want to put it on the ground. Obviously, it needs to be up off the ground a little bit, and then this is the hive body, the deep super, whatever you want to call it. But this is the one where you raise the brood, and you can see the frames in there. There's usually 10 frames in this one, and usually we have 2 deep supers on there. In our part of the world, It takes about 60 pounds of honey to get through the winter. If you have two deep supers on it, a super completely full of honey would hold about 60 pounds, but then you don't have any place for the bees. So you have two of them on there, and let each one of them be about half full, and then you have room for the bees and the honey, and you have your 60 pounds of honey. This is the queen excluder, and a lot of people use these, a lot of people don't. I particularly don't like them. I think they hamper the worker bees. And of course, the bees come in the front, go through here, and they have to go through the queen excluder and go up in here to the shallow super, the honey super, to put the honey up. So I think that hampers the bees and hampers your honey production. But that's my old country boy thought, and a lot of people disagree with that, and that's okay. And then at the top here is the inner cover. This is just a thin board that goes right on top. If you use and of course this is the outer cover. If you don't use the inner cover, they will glue this sucker down, and you just about can't get it off. It's so that's what one of the big things that the inner cover does. It makes it a lot easier for the lid to come off of it. This is one of Langstroth's first versions of, and I think this is supposed to be removable frame. I've looked at this thing. I've been looking at it for years on the computer, and I haven't figured it out yet how it works. But that is an old-timey picture of it. And this is Langstroth. He was the Reverend Langstroth. He from 1810 to 1895, and he's referred to as the father of beekeepers, father of beekeeping. But like I said, he's the one that come up with the honey space and really made beekeeping what it is today. This is a kind of a picture of what you want your hive to look like. And if you could look at this, you see all the little brown dots. That is the brood around the edges over here. There will be honey and pollen. They use the honey and the pollen to feed the brood. So this is kind of what you want your hive to look like. This is the worry hive. And if you see right on here, that is a kind of down to a point, and they just turned upside down, and you see they've got nails in there or something to keep them spaced. But hopefully the bees will build right along this, and the cone will go down. And but again, this is a really simple version. But you destroy your cone every time that you rob them. You destroy your cone. Now, if you're going for cone honey, this is fine. You just you take the cone out anyway when you're doing the cone honey. But if you're just trying to get just extracted honey, some of the other versions of hives are better. This is the top bar hive, and it reminds you a whole lot of the word hive, and because you can see it. Now, if you remember looking at that frame, that cone that was on the limb a while ago, you notice it's in the shape something like this, and this is kind of the natural way that the bees will build their cone. And because you can see some places here where it's been attached to the side, but for the most part, they don't attach it. They leave this. This is their bee space. This is that 5/16 space, all the way around it where they can pass through. And it has the back up, it has that for the bees to to start their foundation on. And some people will take it and split it and put a little piece of cone, foundation in there, just like a half inch or something, to kind of get them started. And once they get started, they'll pretty well follow that. And this is something I like this design, and so that's what it looks like. And again, if you're doing the cone honey, you just cut you a square out and drop it in the jar, and put you some honey in there, and you got it. I like, this is similar to the top bar hive, but this is a long hive or horizontal hive, whatever you want to call it. And so we'll look a little bit more at this. This is one that I built back several years ago, and used it some. This is the entrance for the bees where they go in. And then if it gets crowded in here, you can open this one back here up and let the, where they was spraying the honey and the pollen and the nectar, you can open that up and they won't have to go all the way through the hive. This is just a package of three-pound package of bees. I'll show you right quick. And if you order bees from Apiary, from Clarkson, from Kelly Bees or somebody, this is what you get. So this is kind of what, and then this right here is where the 3-pound package of bees has been emptied into this this long hive, and you can see the frames that's in here. The queen cage is right in here, and you dump the bees in there on it. And let's see, yeah, okay. This right here is what's called a follower board, and you can see the frames here. The follower board, so it gets pretty snug against the walls and down against the wired bottom, so you don't hardly have any bees coming by that to to get into the open space. But as they fill this up and you need to add some frames to it, you just take this follower board and move it down and add whatever you need to in there. And another good thing I like that is, again, this is using the Langstroth frames. But if you get, when you get into the honey, if the queen decides to come down here and lay some eggs in around on one of the frames in the honey area, you can just take it out and move it down and just keep going. It's got a lot of advantages, so I kind of like that. Another thing is, of course, as you get old, like me, it's kind of hard to, at the deep hive body, deep super, when it's filled with bees and with honey, that thing weighs like 85, 90 pounds. And, it just kind of hard to pick it up and move it. With the long hive, everything is right there, waist level, and the heaviest thing you have to pick up at one time is one frame, which maybe weighs maybe 7, 8 pounds. So that makes a lot of difference. Talk a little bit about the value of bees, because the honeybees was quickly recognized as good pollinators, and I didn't watch it, but I think you just had one on about pollinators. But the honeybees are probably the best pollinators that we've got, and I don't know if I'm not conflicting with somebody, but I think we have about 130 food crops in the U.S. and about 70% of those need to be pollinated, and the honeybees pollinate about 80% of all that gets pollinated. And I know people will disagree with this, but you have yellow jackets, wasps, honeybees, all kind of other kind of little bees that go about and help to pollinate. But just say a yellow jacket, for instance, a great big yellow jacket nest will maybe have 100 bees, 100 yellow jackets on it. A big beehive will have 75, 80,000 bees. So, who is most likely to do the most pollinating? So, honeybees will, they account for about a third of our food because of the increased production from because of the pollination that they do. If it weren't for the honeybees, our American farmers wouldn't be able to produce enough food to feed all the people. So it's really, honeybees are really important. is probably the best pollinators that we got around. And just throw this in, you know, if you're interested in bees and want to get started again, you know, going to these beekeeping associations, you know, these are the people that's there, and 99.9% I'm willing to jump right in there and help you to get started. But if you only have, if you only have 2 colonies of bees in your backyard, you know, you've added about 150,000 bees out there pollinating. So it's you know, it's really important, every little bee that you get. And you know, when we was kids, you know, we used to walk around in the yard and you see a honeybee and we step on him and kill him. That's not a good thing. Okay, so we learn as we get older. The value of the honeybee to the U.S. agricultural industry is about $26 billion per year. And this is, you know, this presentation I got here is 2 or 3 years old, so it's probably more than that now. And, you know, where I get this information is from the different universities, like University of Michigan has a lot of good information. And of course, you know, UT has they have a book. It's called Beekeeping in Tennessee, and I don't know if I show that in here or not, but you know, you can download it. You can buy it from the extension officer, but you can download it for free, and it's really good. And it talks about you know, it goes through what we need to be doing on certain months, you know, in our area. You know, this is not a book that's designed for you know, for Wisconsin and for Florida. This is designed for Tennessee. So it's a book worth having. So, okay, look a little bit about the biology of bees. If you see the one on the right, is got the dot on her back, and this is a little craft paint that we put on there. You know, if a bee is crawling around, if a queen is crawling around in there and she's not marked, she's hard to find sometimes. But if she got that white dot on her, you can see her. You know, there's no trouble to find her. And of course, you can see that she's bigger, she's longer. Her body, her body is a lot longer, and of course, this allows her to stick her tail down in the sails, and you go to the bottom of the sail, and she places the egg right in the very bottom of the sail. The next, this is the drone bee. You know, he's a stockier, heavier bee. If you notice, his eyes is on top of his head, so he can see all the way around him. And you know, all the drone bee, he just all he does is mate with the queen. We'll look at that a little bit later. And the worker bees, and this, yeah, actually, a great big hive of bees maybe could have as many as 100,000 bees in it, and you know, 99% of them will be worker bees, and the worker bee is just what she says. She's the worker. They do all of the work in the hive. Except the queen is the only other one that does any work, and all she does is lay eggs. Of course, they claim it in the like in February, March, the longest time of year when you're building the colony up, you go from maybe 35,000 bees that go through the winter. So you would need about you know, 60 to 70,000 bees. But this time of the year, you'd have to have enough bees to, you know, to bring in the nectar and the pollen to produce the honey. So the queen, and if you figure, I figured this out before, but if she lays 2,500 eggs a day, she's been busy. But I think on the average, a queen maybe they lay about maybe about 1,500 eggs a day, but she can lay up to 2,500. This is just a picture of a frame, and we'll look at this. if you see these two little things, right, two little peanuts right here on the bottom, these are what we call swarm cells. Both of those are capped. So there is a queen bee in each one of them. And if you look at this frame, if you don't know anything about beekeeping, you see all of these that are rounded, raised up, those are drones. These that are down flat, these are the worker bees, the worker brood. And you see how the drone cells are scattered all around in there. Well, this means that the queen is losing her ability to lay enough eggs to sustain this colony. So some of the young worker bees have got together and decided that mama got to go, so they build swarm cells, and the first one of those swarm cells to hatch will sting any other swarm cells that's in there and kill those bees, and then that queen will become the queen of the hive. Just a few days before these hatch out, the old queen that is in there will take about half of the colony, and she will leave, and she will go somewhere and start another colony. And of course, you can see that she's failing here, but at the same time, if she's got 70,000 bees in this colony, she swarms and takes 35,000, then she don't have to lay nearly as many eggs to keep that colony at its strength. So she can last another year like that. Now, when you see swarm cells that are capped, your first tendency is you don't want your bees to swarm, so you try the swarm cells out. Well, there's a really good possibility if you do that this queen is going to leave anyway, and you've tore your swarm cells out, and now you don't have a queen. So, and I know a couple of instances, around here where that's happened. So what I'm saying is, if the cell is capped, don't tear it out. Let them swarm and try to catch swarm. So this is another thing. This is a superseding cells, and these is always up in the middle of the frame. And so the swarm cells is always right here on the bottom, right at the bottom bar, and the swarm cells is always up middle ways or something. Now they're not going to swarm. What they will do is again, the first one to hatch out will kill any other that's in there. But a few days or before one of these hatches, the worker bees will take the old queen that is in there, and they will kill her and just throw her out. And when one of these hatches, they will take your mating flight, and they'll come back, and that'll be the queen of the hive. And you still got all of your bees. You had a period of time there that you didn't have any eggs and weren't raising any brood. But you still got all of your bees. This is just a picture of a swarm, and oftentimes a lot of you may have seen these hanging out of trees, but and there's several different ways of harvesting them. Like this particular one, you could set your hive right up under it. That's pretty solid looking right there, and you could take something like even a 3-pound hammer or something, hit that right hard, and most of them bees would fall right in the hive. So there's different ways of harvesting the swarms if you run across them. Might add, if you get a swarm of bees in your yard and you don't want to fool with them and none of that kind of stuff, if you wait about 24 hours, they'll be gone. So you don't need to go out and spray them or nothing, try to kill them or nothing like that. Look at the old drone bee for a little bit. There could be just a few hundred to 1,000 drones in a hive. The only thing the drone does is it mates with the queen. If he mates, when he mates, he will die. All of his organs will pull out, and he'll fall to the ground and die. The drone, the flight pattern is about 18 feet above the ground. If a queen goes out to mate, she will go to this fly zone, and that's where she will fly. Well, this is where the drones fly all the time, because this thought is the reason that if the drone has his eyes at the top of his head, he can see all the way around him and looking for a plane. But he will fly, and he'll fly himself to death in about 6 weeks if he don't find a plane to mate with, and then if he don't mate and he don't fly himself to death, after have the first freeze in the winter, starting of the winter, the worker bees know that there's not going to be any more mating going on until next spring, so they'll put all the drones out and they'll die. They can't. The drones don't do anything to take care of themselves. They don't even have a stinger. So, now the worker bee. This is what makes up the hive. And like I said, on an average, we probably have 75,000 bees in a good strong colony. Maybe sometimes maybe as low as 60, but on great big colonies, and we're looking. You see this one right here in the corner. See that one right there could easily have as many as 100,000 bees. I can't imagine why anybody would want to put that many supers on. Or before you get up that high, you start taking them off. But the worker bee, they do all of the work that is to be done in the colony. They, first thing they do when they emerge from their cell is they try and clean up their cell. Then one of their first jobs is feeding the older larvae, and as they get a little older, they feed the younger larvae. When the nectar and pollen is brought in, they take that and have to dry the moisture. And when nectar comes in, I think it's about 65% water, and it has to be dried down to 18% or less, or to be cured honey. So they go through all the process of doing that, add the little enzymes and whatever to make it what it is. Of course, they produce the wax. I think we got a picture in here where the little flakes of wax is coming out of the abdomen of the worker bees. About the first 3 weeks, they will work inside the hive doing what's to be done. And like I said, they do all of the cleaning. They feed the queen. They guard the front entrance. We'll look at that. If another bee comes in, each bee has their own distinctive odor, and if a different bee comes in, the guard bees won't let it in. And of course, the exception to that, if a bee comes in that's loaded down with pollen, they'll let her in. But if she tries to come out empty to get something to take out, they won't let her in. They all have their own little smell. And of course, they collect the porpoise that they use for the glue. They glue everything together. They use that stuff to kind of coat the insides of the hive. And it has all these bacterial killing properties in it. And the inside of a beehive is about the cleanest thing that you'll run across. It may not look it, but it is. This is let's look at the front of the hive, and you can see the bees that's lined up looking out, because these are some that are going in. But and this is where they where you have some dead bees in it. They bring them out and throw them out, and do this. This is something that in the spring of the year, you have. The worker bee will normally live about 6 weeks through the honey flow season, but she will live all winter if she's just in the hive and not out working. She'll live all winter. So she's several months old, and then as they start working in the spring, and they start dying off pretty quick, and of course the new bees come along to take their place. And you can see right there, you can see the pollen that they have hair on their legs, and they take some kind of some stiff hair, and they will take that pollen and pack it in that hair, and that's their pollen baskets where they bring the pollen in. This is kind of a picture of nurse bees. You can see yeah, you can see like the heads of some of the little bees there. This is, and of course the nurse bees are doing their thing, taking care of them, feeding them, whatever. This is just pictures of lava, and at a certain stage when the the lava, I think it's maybe about 6 days or something like that. They will fill this up with honey and with pollen, and then they'll put the cap on it, because you can see some here that are capped, and they'll and these are capped with fresh wax. It's so if you like, you want to use the wax to make uh, candles or lip balm or something like that, because the cappings that you cut off of your honey is the stuff they use. But they will cap all this, and then in about 21 days, uh, the baby bee will emerge out, the worker bee. I didn't mention it, but the drone takes about 24 days to emerge. And the queen bee, of course, any fertilized egg can make a queen bee. And the difference is, instead of feeding them with the bee milk or the royal jelly, as we call it, for like 6 days, the whole diet of the bee that is going to be a queen will be on that royal jelly. And it's so high in proteins and minerals and whatever that it causes her to develop sexually, and she has ovaries, and then she's able to mate, and she's able to lay a fertilized or non-fertilized egg. All the fertilized eggs are worker bees, or female bees, and all the non-fertilized are drone bees. This is a picture of pollen, because all the different colored pollens is from the different kind of plants that they get it from. Uh, if you see the shiny in there, that's honey. That's where they're they bring the nectar in, they deposit it in a cell. The worker bees in the hive, they will move it around and do whatever they need to do to dry it out, and then they'll fill these cells. When these cells get full and the moisture is down to 18% or less, they will cap it. Like last year, we had a lot of trouble with our honey being capped because we had so much wet weather and they couldn't get the moisture down. So we had some trouble with that. Any honey that is 18%, or I think it's 18.2% moisture or less, will never run. It will crystallize after a while. Some different plants crystallize quicker than others, but they had found honey in the Egyptian tombs, and it was crystallized. They heated it up, and it brought it right back to its natural liquid state, and it's as good as it ever was. This is the little flakes of wax, and because this is the bottom of the abdomen of the worker bee. You can even see her stinger. How about that? And so these have these little flakes of wax come out, and they collect that little flake, and that's what they build all their cone and everything with. So a quick, just a good way to kind of a quick look back, but a good way to get started is by joining the beekeeping associations. And like I told you, that every county around us, I think the Lawrence Wayne County is together, and I believe they may be meeting at the extension office over there. There's one in Lewis, Marshall County, and I'm not sure where they meet. There's one. I know there's one in Murray County, and they was meeting at one of the churches up there. There's the one in Giles County. They meet up on Camelford Road up above Camelford. And there's a Limestone County, there's a Madison County, Lincoln County has got one that started a couple of years ago, and I think they meet at the Lincoln County Extension Office. But you know, all of these, there's lots of good, knowledgeable people that's in these clubs. And I didn't mention to start with, but there's an old saying that you give 10 beekeepers the same problem, and they give you at least 12 different ways of solving that. And there's a lot of truth to that, but there's a lot of different ways to get to the same place in beekeeping. So, and you know, all of these clubs, you have people that, you know, I've tried this and it didn't work, and somebody else said, man, it works fine for me. So, so there's a lot of information to be had out there. Just something to think about. If you woke up one spring and there wasn't any honeybees, and there was, say, 25, 30%, you know, like now there's 25, 30% less bees than there was 25 years ago. But if you woke up some morning and you didn't have any bees, and you know, your a third of your food source was gone, you know, what would that be like? And it's you know, just to think about that should be an incentive for you to want to get into beekeeping. And I said, if you don't have but a couple of hives, something I would definitely recommend is that you have 2 hives, because then you can kind of compare one to the other. And if one's doing really good and the other one's not doing good, then you can figure that there's something wrong with one of them. So that, you know, gives you something to kind of gauge them by. But you know, just like anybody can be a beekeeper. You have to. I think I've got a thing. Well, I think the next slide here kind of, and this is kind of outdated, so it's cost you a little bit more than this now to get started in beekeeping. But just a couple of years ago, this is kind of what it was. But if you have, you know, that's looking for one hive, and of course, if you do a second hive, you know, it's cheaper because you don't have to buy, you know, your beginner kit and, you know, your smoker and all that kind of stuff. So, and another caution is you don't want to get carried away. And I know a couple of cases where this has happened. If somebody gets started and they have 2 or 3 hives and they're doing good and making all this honey, and then they get a chance to catch a swarm, and they'll do that, and then first thing you know, they've got 10 to 15 swarms, and there's a lot of work in beekeeping. So don't overload yourself. You know, get started, learn something about it. The first thing, and of course, you know, this is basic beekeeping that we're talking about, and what got us to the point where we're at today is all of the experimenting that people have done and all that. But I would really caution you to learn basic beekeeping, and then from there you do all the experimenting you want to do. But you learn about the bees. You learn what causes them to do this and that, and you know, the different kinds of food that they collect, and you know, learn all of that, and then start experimenting if you want to. A few years ago, there was a fellow there right down below me and called me. He had some bees in a tree, and I went down there, and this is what he had. And this was late in the year, and this little, I don't know, the plum tree or something. But anyway, it had been all covered up with leaves, and he didn't know that he had it. And then, of course, in the fall, when the leaves started falling off, you know, here's this swarm of bees hanging up there. So that was right neat. I cut it down and carried it home, and of course wasn't able to save it because it's so late in the year. But you run across some of that kind of stuff. All right, that's about all I got. And am I supposed to try to answer questions, Kevin? Okay.
We will open it up for questions for Beanie. So if you have any, you can unmute yourself and ask them, or you can put them in the chat.
One share here. We can see if there's any chat.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat right now. On that.
I don't think that I need to give folks my phone number if they need to call me or anything, or.
Well, they can reach us and then we
Okay.
can get a hold of you if we need to. That's the way we'll do it, Darby. If somebody has questions, Benny will be glad to talk to them. They just need to call our office, 363-3523, and we'll get them in touch with him. And he'll be glad to talk bees and answer any questions.
Well, we thank you all for coming today and visiting with us as Benny teaches us a little bit about the basics of beekeeping. And we will be posting these presentations and sending them out to you all. So thank y'all for coming.
All right, thanks, Darby. We'll see you tomorrow.